Hello, everyone, and welcome to the September 17th regular Legislative Committee meeting of the Town of Vegreville. Call this meeting to order at 3 o'clock. I'll be looking for a motion to adopt the agenda. Councillor Barry makes the motion. Is there any additions or deletions? Seeing no hands, all those in favor? Carried. Up next, we'll get a motion to adopt the minutes of our last regular Ledge meeting. Councillor Lemko makes the motion. Any errors or omissions within those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so we have a couple of delegations today, and we're going to start off with the Vegreville Transportation Services Society, and Helen Litwin will be here representing them.
Okay. Whoa. Oh. Okay, I'm like, whoa. So on behalf of the Vegreville Transportation Society, we would like to request our funding to continue into the next year, into 2025. So I'm not sure what else you need to know. I know we sent some information prior. So
we do have your financials here for the year. We understand that VTSS has purchased a new minivan.
We absolutely.
And how's that going? Everything's good?
Well, yeah, it has been, but we already got a recall on on the back, the camera part, and so yeah, so we haven't even used it yet, but yeah, we got a recall, but that's okay. It's looking good.
Excellent. And were you able to get some help with some in the purchase locally, or?
Yes, we did. We had a number of service groups that have contributed, as well as we had some bequeaths last year where we were able to purchase the vehicle.
And to set it up?
Yes, that as well.
For the handicap, so, okay.
Yeah, the conversion costs almost as much as the vehicle itself, actually. But, yeah, we had enough funds to do that.
And the vehicle was purchased locally?
Yes, it was. It was.
Hopefully they helped you out there as well.
A little bit. The conversion actually has to take place down east, but the vehicle was purchased from a dealer in town.
Excellent. Okay, we'll start off with some question period. We're going to go to Councillor Rudick.
Thank you, Helen. I wonder if it's maybe helpful, just because if we have anybody listening, and just as a recap, to explain how the voucher system works, how the payment process works for VTSS. And then as a second part is, I don't know if it's been shared with the public about the naming of the vehicle or the acknowledgement of some of the major donors.
Oh, okay.
So,
VTSS has two separate sort of programs. We operate the handy van. So Albertans, our town members and county members from Minburn can access the handy van. Usually it's used for out-of-town medical trips. For the most part, it's pre-booked. And so we have a volunteer driver. We pay an honorarium. So that's one piece of what VTSS does. And then we also have the voucher program here in town. So any of the taxi services can access them. Any of the town members can use them who are eligible for the program for any of the taxi services here in town, if they register with us, the taxi services. They can get, so town members who are seniors, low income, or meet our eligibility criteria. Seniors, there is none, you just have to be a senior, but if you have some disabilities or things like that, you have to meet the income piece, because it is for those who need that support. And so, yeah, it's about $2.50 on every taxi fare, and the town or the county member can, they get about 10 every 6 weeks. So they get that many vouchers that they can use wherever they choose to use. yeah, they can go to community events, they can go shopping, they can meet their daily needs. And as far as the handy van, it's the same sort of idea. There is a subsidized rate for all seniors or those that are eligible for the program, and those that are not would not be entitled to the subsidy, but they could if they needed it. So, yeah.
So people under a certain income threshold do qualify for a discount with the handy van, and if you're not in that classification tax-wise, you can still rent the van, but at the regular price.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we've had that happen. Not too often, because usually it's booked a lot for the medical appointments, and because we only have one driver who does do only Monday to Friday. She does on certain, if she can, she will do other things outside of that. So she's taking people on Saturdays or Sundays to special events and things like that. But for the most part, because it is an honorarium and she's only getting so much every day, it's up to her to do anything extra.
She's been doing it for quite a while.
Yes, we're having to do some planning for future drivers. Yes.
I know she's important to the whole overall program, and
She is, or any volunteer who's going to be the driver is very important to that, because as a community service or as a society, we couldn't afford to pay somebody minimum wage for every hour that they worked. We just couldn't do it.
well, good on her and good on who else is gonna volunteer there. Go ahead, Councillor Lemko.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have a question, and just for curiosity, do you track how many trips are made in a year, the use of the handy van?
Oh, yeah, we would know that. Unfortunately, I might not be able to
Okay,
tell you
I'm
that
just
right
curious
at
to
this
see
moment.
how many trips are made and the usage rate of that. I know it's booked quite regular, so
Oh, yes.
I was just curious to see the amount.
Yeah, definitely could be something that I could get back to council if that's something that you'd like to have. Right now, I just don't have it, I'm sorry. I can tell you how much we spent or how much we earned, but that doesn't tell you what you wanted to know as far as numbers.
Maybe he's looking to become a driver, I don't know.
Maybe, just always looking for volunteers. Well, that too.
So Helen, I guess you're here, and again, because it is budget coming
Yep.
up, and VTSS is asking for the 22,000 in grant funding that it's received the past number of years from the town of Vegreville.
Yes, that's what we would like to request, yes.
Okay. No other questions? Well, we'll get back to you on that.
Okay.
We haven't passed a budget yet.
And we do appreciate the liaisons that we've had on our board, both Tina and now Tanid, so thank you for that. We appreciate that. So we look forward to hearing your answer.
Well, we get reports from the board.
Well, that's
person on
good.
the board, yeah, so it's good, and we all appreciate, I know, that you're all volunteers over there and stuff, and we do appreciate, what you're doing for our community, the greater community here, and it's a need that's always gonna be there, so.
Yeah, it's been involved a long time, almost from inception. So been here a long time.
Thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay, next, we have Prairie Tales Animal Rescue Society, Connie Brown. Welcome, Connie.
Hi, how are you doing?
We're good, and yourself?
There, is that better?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I'm just gonna give you guys a bit of a recap of how our year's been going. Beginning of January, we had 34 cats in our care and 1 dog. Majority of those cats were in our little shelter building. So it was pretty busy in there. A year ago, we lost our partnership with the Pet Value in Emerald Hills. They sold, and the new owner had already partnered with another rescue, so we lost that. So that has caused a major decline in adoptions. Major decline. So in March, we ended up having to transfer out 24 cats to another rescue that was willing to take them on. They were all fixed. We had them all vetted before they went. So that was a major expense for us. But we needed to clear out room. Kitten season was coming. Then in July, we transferred out another 6 cats. And we're currently working on transferring out another 18, hopefully by the end of this week. And same thing, the other rescues, and I totally understand, they'll take them on as long as they're vetted because they don't want that extra expense. So we're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here. If we don't get them vetted, nobody's going to take them. So, where am I here? So far this year, we've had 6 dogs come into our care, which maybe 6 doesn't sound like a lot, but we typically don't see dogs come into our care. And that's when I say 6 dogs, that's 6 dogs that were never claimed by their owners. 1 dog came in a box, was taped up in a box outside the shelter. Another one was dumped at the egg park, and the owner refused to come and get that one. Municipal enforcement is dealing with that, but we had to find a place to send that dog. All these animals that come into our care that have been dumped typically come with medical issues, and that's usually why their owners dump them. It's not an excuse, but that's typically what we've seen. They come with major medical issues, so we've had to deal with those medical issues. Where are we here? Since January, we've taken in or had born in our care 84 cats and kittens. And we're not even at the end of the year yet. We had 7 kittens born in our care, and we have another litter due probably within the next week. That mother cat came to us because the owner packed up and moved away from town and left her cat outside. So that was honestly another dumped one. Last month, we had a call from Walmart. There was a box left outside their building that was taped up with a mother cat and 4 kittens in it. It was 30 degrees outside. Those kittens and cat was all in major medical distress when we got them to the vet clinic. Out of those 84 cats, we have been able to send 8 of those cats out to be barn cats. Typically, if we get a feral cat brought in, usually they're in a trap because you can't handle them. Of course, they can't go to a home because they're too wild. We find barns that are willing to take them. We get them fully vetted, just so they're not producing more kittens, and we send them off to barns. We've also had to euthanize 5 feral cats that have come into us with feline leukemia and parvo, which is very, very contagious. And we are still currently working on an area in town where there is feline leukemia, and there is other feral cats that we're trying to get in. It's just going to spread, and it'll spread to people's pets. They let them go outside. If they're not vaccinated for the virus, they're going to bring it in. They're going to share it with their other cats, and it's deadly. It will eventually kill them. So we have had to deal with the feline leukemia. We've had to deal with parvo. We've had to deal with feline AIDS and giardia. Typically, when we get a cat come into the shelter, they almost always come in with something, whether it's parasites or some kind of a virus. So we've had a lot of that. We have people showing up at the shelter all times of the day and evening requesting food. We do want to help people. We do get donations from Walmart. They give us their damaged product. So if we can help people and it helps them keep their animal with them, we will help with the food. We do get some people that show up, though, that are maybe not the nicest and belligerent, and I usually refer them on to municipal enforcement, which I had to do the other night at 10 o'clock. So we see a lot of that. We've also been having people show up at my house. They say Vegreville is a small town, so they know where I live. So I've had people showing up at my house. I had a woman drop a dog off at my house last Friday night at 8 o'clock that she had found on the outskirts of town. We look after animals that are found inside town limits. We don't have the capacity to take animals from out of town, so I had to contact the vet clinic, we had to contact the SPCA, and they had to take over the case. That dog was also dumped by its owners, so SPCA is investigating that, and the dog has been transferred to their care. All of that comes with a cost, though, whether it's because we're going to have to help feed these animals or we have to help with the vetting. Everything comes at a cost. Let me see here, sorry. We've also noticed a lack of staffing with municipal enforcement lately. Typically, dogs are always handled through municipal enforcement. I don't want to put our volunteers at risk. If we're picking up a stray dog, we don't know if that dog's got aggression. But I know the last few times that we've been contacted about a dog that's running loose, there's been nobody from municipal enforcement that was able to pick this dog up in the evening. The last time it was 32 degrees outside. I had to put the dog in my vehicle. It had been running through swamp water. And I drove this dog around town for over an hour trying to cool him down while I found another rescue that was willing to come out and take this dog from us. After that, of course, I had to get my vehicle detailed because it was a little skunky. So those are some of the issues that we run into with the shelter. We are a small group, but I feel like we have taken on a big venture. And of course, we do need additional funding, if possible, to help us with that. Since January, our vet bills alone have totaled $31,365.93. If we go back to last September to now, it is $50,732.29. Monthly supplies, we do get donations. We do get a lot of support from our community, and we are so thankful for that. But there are still costs that we have to incur. And there's shelter costs, there's litter, there's wet food. We take in neonates, there's formula, there's bottles, there's incubators. And that runs approximately $350 to $400 a month, just for those. So that's where all of our dollars go. Last year we did a lot of fundraising. It was exhausting. We probably put in 30 to 35 hours a week just for fundraising. Easily, it probably was even more than that. Beginning of July, we took a break from the fundraising so people could have summer holidays and just to focus on family. But we will be starting back up with the fundraising again, probably in another month. So that's about all I have to say. So.
When did you start seeing people showing up at your facility asking for you to give them food for their animals?
Oh gosh, that's been going on for years. That's been from day one. I think it's been worse lately. The last year or so, it's been worse. Sometimes people will message us and say, I've ran into rough times. Is there any way you can help us with dog food? I'm not going to say no. If we have the supplies, we will assist. I would rather see us helping them than them have to surrender their pet or potentially dumping it. The one that showed up, actually it was 2 weeks ago, they showed up at the shelter when my morning volunteer was there. They sat in their vehicle outside the door and honked the horn because we keep the gate locked because people are always coming and banging on the door. And she went out there to see what was going on, and this person, 5 years ago, was charged with dumping 3 boxes of cats outside of our shelter. It was December 23rd, it was cold. It was caught on video camera. He was charged, it went to court. He was a no-show, so the judge threw it out. So now he's showing up at the shelter wanting dog food and cat food, and it puts us in a hard spot because I want to say no because of what he's done, but at the same time, if I say no, is he going to leave another box of cats outside of our shelter? So same thing, we're stuck between a rock and a hard place there. He was told at that time by the volunteer, she said, I can't authorize this, please go through municipal enforcement. He's not going to go through municipal enforcement because they deal with him all the time. So he showed back up at the shelter. When I was there one night, it was about 9:45. I had just finished adopting out a cat. I still had the gate unlocked because I was leaving, and there was a knock. I assumed it was the adopter stopping back, and it was him and another person came wanting food. It was a little intimidating because I know of the history there, but I did tell him, I said, I know who you are, I know what you've done, I know you've dumped cats outside of our shelter before. He said, oh, but I won't do that again. So those are some of the issues that we deal with. Like I said, we try and keep the gates locked at all times. In the winter, the locks freeze up, so there are times that we're not able to lock it. But I've always told our volunteers, you don't answer the door unless you're expecting somebody. So I know about a year ago, I do believe they did a walkthrough with some of the council members, and they didn't notify us first, and I know my volunteer was very unnerved by it. That was just an oversight, but I have requested going forward, please let us know, because I've always told our volunteers, don't let anybody in the building unless, just for safety reasons. And we have had to call the RCMP in the past. So those are some of the issues that we deal with.
Okay, we should address the elephant in this conversation as municipal enforcement. Sandrick, or CAO Link, can you give us an update where we're at and why we're not being able to be as reliable as we've been in the past?
Currently, we have a vacancy. Gurpreet has moved on to a different position, so when he vacated the bylaw officer role, we have been having difficulties finding a replacement. We are currently in interview, so we're hoping that we will have something in place here or something finalized by the end of the week, which will bring an officer into town. And as for after hours, I will do some investigating into, I think at one point we did have an animal control officer that was paid to be on call, and I'll see what's happened there. A lot of things have changed and not been reinstated since after COVID, so.
So, Connie, typically, if you had an after-hour call about a dog running at large, you would contact municipal enforcement, or did you have a number for somebody within the organization that was on animal control?
I typically would give the caller the 24-hour line to call and said that they need to go through them first. This dog that was found at the egg park in July, they said they called, nobody answered. I said, well, leave a message. They said they couldn't leave a message. I'm not really sure of the whole scenario. I eventually was able to get a hold of one of the officers, and he just said, there's nobody around. And I said, well, what about the on-call? He said, we don't have anybody on call. I said, what am I to do with this dog then? So that's the frustration on our part, right?
We're not missing it in your presentation.
Yeah.
I know at one time we had somebody on call that did that. Am I correct? Yeah, so you're gonna check on that.
I'm going to check on that to see what's happened with that position.
It's still funded.
Okay. I guess and one other thing too is I had a call the other day from a citizen in town. She had been directed to me from Public Works. They had found a dead crow within town limits, and she called Public Works and said, do your guys pick this up? What do they do? And they said, no, call Prairie Tales. We do not deal with wildlife, and we do not deal with carcasses. So, and I've passed that on before. Maybe they had a new staff member. I'm not really aware. I don't know, but we don't deal with that. So.
Okay. We'll look into that as well.
Okay.
Go ahead, Councillor Rudick.
Thank you, Connie, for coming. I've had good experience with your assists in the past, and I also want to make sure that in this forum that you hear from council how much we appreciate your efforts and your volunteers, because it goes above and beyond what was the capacity previously offered by, it used to be our on-call staff and municipal enforcement only. And so we want to make sure that you know how much it's valued and appreciated.
Thank you.
I did have somebody ask me to make sure that council was aware that not only have people become more demanding, they also have many ways to be able to reach you 24 hours a day. So it's the online social media access is a blessing and a curse. So I don't know.
I had to change my personal phone number, actually.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Like people feel very strongly about animals, so they are not nice on social media, and I think they forget that it's a volunteer organization. So if you are going to identify any weaknesses that you see that would be helpful to make sure that PTARs continues to be, or Prairie Tales, continues to do the good work that they're doing. Is there anything that you could see as a suggestion in your operations that would be helpful?
Sometimes I feel like we're lacking in support, but like she said, that if they're short a staff member, that can be why. I just know, months will go by and nobody's ever checked in. Nobody checks in on us, which I'm not expecting people to check in all the time and pat our backs. That's not what we're wanting, but sometimes you feel like maybe if out of sight, out of mind, if that makes sense. So I guess, and it's just when we're dealing with people that are getting irate, it's nice to know if somebody has your back, because we do see that a lot. So.
And again, since you started, you've had a relationship with your municipal enforcement, stopping in, and you were counting on them at times
Yes.
to help. Plus the fact the 24-hour service that we used to have in place for animal control was something that you would instruct people so you didn't have to take it on or have to deal with somebody that's irate.
Yes.
Yes. We certainly get that.
Yeah, definitely.
And like Councilor Riddick says, we do really appreciate what your organization offers over there and your volunteers. So my question to you, the partnership that you lost with Pet Value Village, is that what it was?
Pet Value and Emerald Hills in Sherwood Park.
Okay. Is there any chance to form another partnership with anybody, or what are your thoughts?
We have been checking. We did try the Pet Value in town here, and it just did not really work that well. It wasn't, I'm saying it was totally their fault at all. It's just we don't have as much of a audience in Vegreville than in Sherwood Park or Edmonton. I know when we transferred those cats out in March to a rescue in Red Deer, they had them all adopted within 2 weeks. That would take us a year and a half to do. So we are actively searching. We need to find somebody that's opening a new store, because typically all the ones that we've checked with are already partnered. So that's the big thing. These stores that have been in place for years, they've been partnered with rescues forever. So, oh yeah, we're always on the search for someone to help. We have had good luck with other rescues, like I said, kind of partnering with them, being able to transfer out cats. We kind of do, sometimes it's like, okay, well, we'll give you a stack of dog food if you can help us with kitten food. Or they'll say, well, okay, yeah, we'll take all your cats, but, can you, provide us with, dog food or whatever. So it's kind of a give and take thing, but that's just forming relationships and partnerships, so.
Go ahead, Councilor Curtis.
Thank you. Thanks, Connie. Appreciate the work you do. I'm trying to remember, was there a Wi-Fi or an internet issue you had before? Yes. Did we have that figured out?
Yes, no. So 4 years ago, we had a company out of Red Deer volunteer or donate a security system. It was installed, and we would get the Wi-Fi from the Public Works. Worked fine. And then it eventually started glitching. They came out and checked it, and they said, it's your Wi-Fi. We've had the Wi-Fi checked a few times. Our security cameras have not worked in probably over 2 years. And we're being told it's because of the Wi-Fi coming from Public Works. So, yeah. We still have our signs up saying, because we do hope that one day that it'll get rectified. And I've been told it's being looked at, but I was told that quite a few months ago.
Probably check on that for sure.
It's a security thing too, because I know in the past we've been in the building and somebody has come up to the door, and you can go on your phone, you can check to see who's outside.
Well, you're lucky the manager of sitting right beside you, so.
Yeah.
Dan, and he promised you?
Oh, I didn't say promise.
Okay.
I was told they would check into the
Okay.
Wi-Fi. Nobody ever makes promises. That's too risky.
Well,
I'll promise you today we'll take care of it.
Okay. All right.
We did look into it a couple times.
Yeah.
And we're just waiting for some quotes to come back.
Okay.
We'll definitely look into it and get it solved.
Okay. That'd be wonderful.
okay, well, again, your ask of some grant funding Same as has been in the past, is what you're asking for?
Yes, if there was a little extra to add in, we would definitely accept it with open arms.
Okay.
How's that for diplomatic?
Is there any other questions, Connie? Well, again, on behalf of council, we do appreciate the service that you and your volunteers provide over there. And, I mean, with the lack of municipal enforcement people that we've had on the ground right now, and some looks like a couple of things have been dropped, but we're gonna try to get it in to try to look into that and see what we can do to get that back up and everything running at least close to what it was before for you.
Perfect. That's appreciated. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, next up, Manager Gosling from Family Community Support Services. Hello. We gotta change your name or what?
All right, thanks for having me. So I am here today to give you our FCSS Vegreville and District FCSS third quarter update. And just a reminder that the format that we use aligns with our actions and recommendations in our 2023 to 2026 strategic plan. So I'll just go through that as it aligns with that strategic plan. So under our goals over this last quarter, under information referral and volunteer and natural supports developments, we were able to update a lot of our publications within our department. We do a lot of information and referral, obviously. And in addition to that, it was requested by Mayor McPhee and also Councillor Lemko. They had been to a seniors facility and they caught Teresa and I as we were delivering Meals on Wheels and had said that the seniors requested a help poster or some resources and information to be posted in their facilities. So we actually took that back to our office and took it to our VAST meeting. So that's the Vegreville Adults and Seniors Task Force. And out of that, they developed a seniors help poster. So that is now being distributed to all the seniors facilities in the community. So full circle. We were able to follow up and get that done through one of our committees. So not just our FCSS, but through one of our task force in our community. Also under the later stage prevention goals, these were goals or concerns that were brought to us by community members. It was the child care initiative, so we continue to sit on that child care initiative throughout the summer, and we have a meeting on September 24th to talk about how we're going to move forward, knowing that there is potential for-profit daycares that may be coming into our community. So September 24th, if there's anybody out there who has a vested interest or interest in childcare in our community, please come on out. It's posted on our Facebook page to learn a little bit more about what we're doing and potential next steps with addressing the childcare issues or needs in our community. Under the mental health and addictions later stage, we've been doing some coordination with the RCMP and the RCMP Crime Reduction Partnership Liaison. We had a discussion about the RPAC team. That's the Regional Police, sorry, I want to get it right here. The Regional Police Crisis Team. So we had those conversations. In addition to that, they're going to be working on an environmental scan for our community, providing us the highlights in gaps and service needs for Vegreville. So that is coming from that public safety and community well-being branch in the RCMP. So she's currently doing interviews in our community and providing us a report, hopefully in the next couple of months here. So, transportation, we continue to sit as a member on the Ad Hoc Transportation Committee. And under the Housing and Basic Needs, we were successful in the grant, the Housing and Basic Needs grant, transitioning that over to the food bank. And we're currently providing them some support, just if they have anybody that's utilizing those dollars, the funding dollars for the housing and basic needs, the coordinators just using FCSS as a support just to provide them with resources, doing that information referral, and then of course they have the funds to be able to do anything in addition to that. So. Under our core programs, we've seen an uptake, and I did report this in our last quarter as well, in our Meals on Wheels program. It's actually a significant uptake in delivering meals. So we deliver 25 meals during the week and up to 44 meals on a Friday and Monday to residents in our community. In addition to hot meals, we do have the frozen meals as well. So we are currently recruiting volunteers. So if you know anybody who out there, or if there's anybody out there who's interested in becoming a Meals on Wheels driver, we would greatly appreciate it. It's low commitment. You can drive or deliver meals as many times in a month as you want, or as few as one day a month. And it's usually about an hour. It's like picking up meals at 11 o'clock or just after 11, and you're done by noon. So not a lot of commitment, but making a huge impact in our community. So,
what's the difference between the meals required during the week and then the big jump on the weekends? Like
the delivered meals, or sorry, the frozen meals is the extra. So on a Friday, we don't deliver during the weekend. So they order, yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
You drop off enough to last.
Right.
Okay.
So they may order a couple of extra frozen meals so they can have them for the Saturday and Sunday. So, yeah. And then also, because we've seen an uptake, there's some additional costs that we have because of that. And one of them is that the containers can be quite costly, and knowing that we've got that increase, we're also looking for a funder in the community that would subsidize the cost of those containers. Right now, the Lions Club is doing it, but they had said they had a set amount of containers that they would fund, and now because we've got this huge increase, they're going, we'll continue to fund it for now, but we are right now looking for if there's another service club or in the community, if there's anybody who would be interested in contributing to the Meals on Wheels program, we would greatly appreciate it as well. So right now we're okay, but we are trying to be proactive in keeping those costs down for our residents in that program that are utilizing that program. Community counseling program. During this quarter, I have continued to work with the Calgary Counseling Centre on bringing back our subsidized counseling program to Vegreville, and we're still in those conversations. So under Recover Alberta, there was some funding dollars that were given to Calgary Counseling Centre, and I had put in a proposal to continue on with counseling. And I think between our MLA and myself, just continuing to push and advocate for that service in our community, we were able to get our proposal to the Deputy Minister, and from there, that was passed on to the Calgary Counseling Centre, and I was given a call that we were going to be a priority for funding moving forward. So she's given a contract. Calgary Counseling Center has, the executive director has sent a contract out that we facilitated and coordinated with the counselor that we currently had in our community. So we're just, right now, that's in the hands of the counseling agency, and we're hoping to also have that offered out of our FCSS office. It worked out really well. They were, when Guided Path was here, they offered the program on a Sunday, and that worked out really well for community because we were able to keep it confidential, and then they maintained, or they actually were able to do all the bookings, manage all the money for it. It was a great partnership. So we want to continue with that if we can. So I will keep you updated as to where that is, but it seems to be really promising at this point. So continue to do that. And this year we also ran our after hours program during the summer, and that was a partnership between the FRN, FCSS, and the Sunshine Club. And so Dwayne Halati had hosted these kids, and what they did was they made a meal together and sat down and then just shared that connection with one another. And so maintaining that program throughout the summer was fabulous. It's really, really difficult to get youth to participate in any kind of programs during the summer, but we were able to successfully facilitate and run that program with, I think there was 6 to 10 kids that showed up, and they just love hanging out at the Sunshine Club. So it was intergenerational. The kids were connected and they were building their skills. I mean, it was all around a very successful program. So we're hoping to do that again next summer. And then the star of our summer, Sizzling Summer, was successful this year. Despite we had, we didn't have staff. We had staffing issues, so we were down a couple of staff in our office. We had reduced Canada Summer Jobs funding, so as a result of that, we had one less staff in our Sizzling Summer. We ran a really great program and did some surveying of parents and kids, and the majority of families and kids said they just love the program. So I do have some stats here I can share with you. So we set the number at 25 campers this year, and there were even a few days that we exceeded that and had up to 30 campers. So it was very successful. 20% of the campers were age 7, and we had an increase of children ages 5 and 6 in our program this year. So challenges. This year we had more younger children who struggled with regulating their emotions and were very shy to participate. At the beginning of during that first week, we actually had kids having like full-on tantrums, wanting to go home because they really struggled with that separation from home or their parents. But by the end, we were getting reports that kids did not want to go home. They were telling their parents that they wanted to stay longer. And so that was a success story, knowing that throughout the program they were able to feel a lot more comfortable. They felt comfortable with staff. We had great feedback from parents. They were to rate the staff from 1 to 10, and I have all but about 3 or 4 that are 10s for our staffing this year. And we ran it over at the Family Resource Network. It was a great spot for them. The Family Resource Network staff, they weren't helping facilitate the program, but they were there in the morning to greet and talk to the parents, and then they were there at the end of the day to say goodbye, like help the do that warm handoff back to the parents and talk to the parents about the services that they provided, it was fantastic because they were able to introduce a lot of the services that the Family Resource Center offers to families. So it was a great partnership and it worked out really well. And I think that's part of where those 10s are coming from, is that Yulia and Kaylin were there to have those conversations with parents and let them know how their kids did during the day and how they could help. So a couple of success stories. This is from one of the campers. I like coming to Sizzling Summer because I always feel welcome, and at school I get bullied. This was the best summer ever from another camper. I never want this day to end from another camper. Our community is very fortunate to have such dedicated staff and volunteers to run this program. That was from a caregiver and from another camper. Next year, I'm going to be a junior leader. So again, had really positive, despite our challenges, we had really positive feedback this year for our program. And it just speaks to the need that for, I guess, even in relation to childcare, the need for this program. Because we did hear from some parents if you had anything to some feedback, and they all said increased hours, open more spots. So of course, then you know that they're looking for childcare. So utilizing this program for childcare, and I know that the after-school program at A.L. Horton had high numbers this year too. And I don't want to give exact numbers because I'm not sure, but they had a lot of kids. We did partner a couple of times with them, the Sizzling Summer and that Summer Fun program. And there were a number of kids that were attending that program as well. So there certainly is that need for both in the community. And the last thing I wanted to report on was the Kalena Family Resource Network. Yesterday, they launched a new website. So, I don't know, Jameson's just putting it up on the screen there. Yulia, the hub coordinator, made this website from scratch. She did it herself. That's not in her job description. But she did it, and she did it in a very affordable way. So she was able to access some low to no cost options and did a fantastic job of developing this site. So I'll make sure that, I think it's on their Facebook page, the link to it. So I invite all of you and everybody out there to have a look at it. Great site. And in addition to that, they created a video, and that video is in that website as well. So take some time and look at that video. It really gives you a nice overview of the network as a whole and what services they offer through the FRN. There it is right there. So, yeah. And that is FCSS in our third quarter.
Any questions?
Julie, just wondering, on the Sizzling Summer, what's the cost for is it a daily cost, or what do we charge on the Sizzling Summer per student, or per child, I should say?
Yeah, we charge $20 per day, and they pick their days. Okay. So it's not by the week, it's by the day. So parents can come in and they can pre-register, or they can register throughout the summer. $20 a day. We've maintained that for a few years now. Well, for as long as I can remember, actually. We've tried to keep that lower cost, and keeping in mind that it's not childcare, that it's a day camp, and there are lots of free day camps also available in the community. So, you can go to daycare where it's maybe a little bit more, and then have the day camp at $20 a day. But then there's also some nonprofits or government agencies like MHCB that offer free programs, but they're not necessarily for that 6-week span. Like they're different.
Well, and the only reason I just ask on that, because that is very, affordable when you consider some camps are overnight, but there are other camps that people take their kids to that are quite expensive per day. And I just mentioned this, I know I had mentioned it to some of our admin prior, but I just don't see the situation improving on the Canada Summer Jobs side. Just because from what I've seen, I don't believe there'll be additional funding put in, but they've gone up every single year in the request. So I just kind of been pre-warning people that budgetarily planning going forward, they may need to look at some increases because I don't see extra positions really coming up there.
You know what, because of that, that reduction in funding, it actually gave us the opportunity to look at our community and the assets that we have right here in Vegreville. And through partnership and collaboration, we were able to successfully run this program with other agencies as well. So it took really a lot of pressure off the staff that we had because we were able to bring in some of those other agencies and other programs to facilitate some of the programs. And that was a huge success, and it really took that burden off our Sizzling Summer staff, who are our students, right? So having those professionals come in and for a couple of hours deliver quality programming was a huge success, and we're going to actually continue on with that.
Just to follow up to that, I mean, I remember the year that they were looking at changing programs and Sizzling Summer was almost non-existent. And then you had the huge push from everyone to see it continue on. And here it is that many years later. So that's just, it's very interesting. One last one I had too is with the counseling program, was there a fee attached to that as well for people using the services? I couldn't remember prior if there had been a fee like per person for a visit if they are meeting with one of the counselors, or if it is fully funded for them.
What I had arranged with Guided Path was that one of the questions prior to booking them was, what can you afford? So it could be as little as $5 a session. And what we found is people are more accountable and are more likely to show up if they can afford a bit of a fee. Then you know they're not a no-show. So, but if they couldn't afford the fee, then it was at no cost.
And that came out within the funding, or were you having to find that in your like operating or whatever?
No, not at all. That was fully funded. Yeah, and it will continue, and in this contract, it will be fully funded. If anything, we're hoping that by providing the space, we are able to get a little bit of revenue from that out of this contract, so moving forward.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your update and the good work in the community. So if anybody knows of anybody that would like to volunteer some time with Meals on Wheels, and the containers obviously are not reusable.
No,
Okay.
no. They're the little tinfoil containers that the food is packed in. The hospital packs them in there, so.
Okay. We'll see if we can't find you some volunteers.
That'd be great. Thanks.
A couple of guys here that don't have jobs. All right, Dave runs a museum, sorry. And thank you very much, Julie.
Thanks, Julie.
Okay, now we're back to Manager Kuzmic. So you took a look at our legacy policy in the past. Is that where we were?
I can't take credit for that. It was more Leslie took a good look at that, so she did a great job writing it up, but yes.
Okay, so you have the wheel.
Awesome. I'll just give you a little bit of background. So in 2015, the town of Vegreville passed the legacy giving policy. This policy was designed to provide a way for members of the public to recognize and honor others through a tribute in the form of a tree or a bench. While the purpose of that policy remains the same, administration is proposing multiple changes to the policy to ensure that the program functions as 100% cost recovery. Excuse me. and retains records in accordance with the Town of Vegreville's Records Management and Retention Bylaw. And the Parks, Recreation, and Facility Manager has complete oversight of the program. So in the initial policy, it included applications for tree/bench donations, which also contained the price of each item. The new policy has removed that specific option and the prices for the trees and benches, as these items vary in price and availability from year to year. And in the new application, Appendix A, acts as an expression of interest. Submitting this application will trigger the Parks, Recreation, and Facility Manager to contact the donor within 10 business days to complete an agreement, Appendix B. The new Legacy Giving Policy Agreement, Appendix B, outlines the individual costs associated with the bench, tree, and/or plaque donation. Working through this agreement ensures all parties are aware of how the donation fee will be spent and over that dedication term. No agreement will be completed until the donor has submitted the outlined dedication fee. So also under the new policy, it includes dedication terms for 10 years for benches and 20 years for trees. This means that the total time the town will assure maintenance for the donated bench, tree, and/or plaque. So, anyway, 6 months prior to the end of the dedication term, the town will contact the donor and offer first rights of refusal to extend the dedication term, at which time a new agreement would be completed. Stipulations have been added to the new policy for maintenance. If a tree or plaque are damaged during the dedication term, the town will replace the donation at no additional cost to the donor. If a bench is damaged, defaced, or destroyed during the time, administration will work with the donor to determine the cost of a new replacement. New to this policy, a limited number of existing benches will be made available for low-income residents who would like to create a tribute. These donors would only be responsible for the cost of a plaque and maintenance fee. Some of the financial implications: the Legacy Giving Program is intended to operate as a 100% cost recovery model. All fees, including the cost of purchase, delivery, plaques, installation, planting, maintenance, landscaping, administration fees, etc., will be paid for by the donor. The donor will be eligible for an official tax receipt for the value of their donation. Once approved, the updated policy will be shared on the Town of Vegreville website. So some options for council. Council may discuss the draft Legacy Giving Policy today at the Ledge meeting and approve it at the next council meeting set on September 23rd. Or council may choose to discuss at the next legislative committee meeting on October 8th before approval. Or option 3, council may opt to forego the current draft and give direction to administration to update the current Legacy Giving Policy as originally passed in 2015.
Okay, thank you. So we've all gone through the policy, we took a good look at it. It doesn't actually say in here exactly what the maintenance fee would be, so that would be something that you would negotiate.
Yes.
So if a storm was to pick up a bench and completely destroy it or something like that, an act of God, the town would be on the hook to replace it, fix it?
If it's a bench, I believe we'd be going after asking the donor if they'd like to replace that bench. Same if it were to die within that life expectancy time.
What about vandalism?
Depending on the value of it, if it's more than the original donation, then I figure we would ask the donor if they wanted to fix it, yes.
Okay. Any other questions regarding this legacy project? Oops, sorry, go ahead.
I do. I'm curious what kind of uptake there has been since this has been put in place.
It's not in place yet.
We have had a legacy giving program.
Yes.
So I'm curious, like up to this point, how much uptake has there been?
Roughly doing 1 to 2 benches a year, and we haven't done any trees in the last 2 years except for stuff that was supposed to be done prior.
And you keep an inventory of,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, like, are you keeping an inventory of what is in existence? Because part of the reason this came forward previously is there were some instances where legacy trees or benches had been purchased and then it wasn't able to be maintained and it wasn't also able to be tracked. So do we
Right,
have a
so-
way to be able to manage that?
So we do have a rough idea, but nothing written down on paper, which is part of the plan to get that all set up. So we know what we can offer low-income people and what we have existing.
Because I would think that would be an important part of that, because that was the original intention, is to be able to have an idea of what's in place, to make sure that what happened quite a while ago is the oversight and lack of attention, which families rightly felt was disrespectful, which led us to the conversation that there needed to be some maintenance, not just the purchase of an item, but also the maintenance needed to be encompassed in that. So I'll look forward to seeing that as part of the plan moving forward too.
That was a problem in the past. First of all, we didn't keep very good records of anything, and there wasn't a set price on anything. And then when complaints came in, and we asked, well, how long have we been looking after this tree or bench or something? Nobody could answer the question, and so we have some options here today, council. Is anybody willing to, or do we need to discuss it more? Would we be willing to take this for approval on the 23rd, or do you guys want to wait another ledge meeting to discuss it? Go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
Yeah, just in what Councillor Rudick said, I think maybe we should take some time and bring him back on October 8th, discuss it further, look into more detail how we're going to track that with the donors.
We actually are going to track it
Well-
now. We've never done it before. Yeah, that's the problem.
And what's it going to cost, I guess.
Well, again, Manager Kuzmic's department's gonna have to come up with some sort of maintenance fee. And you would like for us to go ahead and pass this now, and then you'll fill in the maintenance fee later? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Nice.
I said, please.
Yeah, I heard you. Councillor Berry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't have a problem with going ahead to pass this right now. The general aspect is that we set policy and then administration puts in the procedures. So I don't have a real problem with turning this over and giving them a policy to follow.
Okay, any other comments? Oh, go ahead, Councillor Rudick.
So kind of related to the question that I asked about maintaining an inventory or records of what actually has been purchased as a legacy giving or item. 10 years and 10 years for benches, 20 years for trees. Is that standard in the municipal world? Is that, because not to be disparaging to some of the examples that happened in the past, I think some of the trees that were at issue were certainly below that 20-year limit, and some of them were far beyond the 20-year. So I think it's reasonable to have a limit. I'm just curious if this is like a industry standard.
I'm going to pass that to Leslie, to be honest. She looked at that part, so.
Sharon, a mic here. Yes, so basically 10 years for benches was pretty much standard across the board when I was comparing other municipal features policies. It just comes down to the fact of maintenance, and that is the average lifetime of a bench, and making sure that we're not replacing something beyond what we're willing to pay for. Again, this policy is designed to be a 100% cost recovery, so we're trying to set up an agreement so that both the donor and the town of Vegreville understands that we will not be putting more money forward from the taxpayer's budget. That's a donation. The 20-year for the trees, that was something that was discussed with our senior management team, and we decided 20 years was a fair number.
Thank you.
Okay, so right now, out of the three recommendations, we have one member that wants to look at the number 2 and then one that wants to look at number 1. So I would just like to go around the table here and get your thoughts, starting with Councillor Lemko.
Yeah, I'm willing to bring it forward to council for approval.
Okay, so 1.
I too am willing to bring it to the council meeting.
Okay, Councillor Rubin.
Yeah, I'll look, number 1 is good. I'll look to hear the policy or the procedures later.
Yeah, I would be fine with that as well, and I think the procedures are gonna be very important. And just as your worship said, when somebody is donating something and it is in memory of, there is sometimes more emotion attached to it than necessarily, you know, just automatically what we would think. So just the more detailed the policy going forward, the better. But I'm fine with 1.
And again, and I hope that your department understands, that's something that you're never gonna capture in policy, is the emotional ties that someone's gonna have to these legacy things. So, I mean, you know, as we move forward, I mean, 100% cost recovery sounds great to council, it really does. And the fact that we know in the past that we've had some complaints about some legacy projects that weren't upkept. So there's a lot to take on. I mean, I feel that the community appreciates when they have a chance to do this, but it's, policy will never capture that emotional tie that someone's gonna have to these trees and benches and stuff, so it looks like we're gonna go to number 1, and we'll approve it, and then you'll bring the procedures and some pricing and stuff back to us as we move forward.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up, Director Lefebvre.
Stereo sound, thanks. I'll use Megan's. Thank you, Worship. The first attachment is the memorandum brought to council. If this moves forward, it will end up at Monday's regular council meeting. The proposal is to have the town council consider the rezoning application file number R24145001. The applicant would like to rezone parcel LBAP 2643AY from urban reserve to direct control. The parcel of land currently has a residential home with no town infrastructure. The proposed development has a series of phases and will keep the residential structure on the same parcel, and attached is the application, the receipt of payment, and the site plan. Communication strategy: after a successful first reading, advertising will be set for 2 consecutive weeks online and in the local paper. A public hearing will then be scheduled for October 16th, 2024, with the opportunity for second and third reading on the same date. The council options are to review the bylaw and move forward with the process, or to review and deny and provide reasons why. The other attachments, just scroll up, are the rezoning application itself, the receipt of payment for the rezoning, and then a site plan for the property and what it's going to look like. This was brought to your attention and for the process to begin, and also just a note that we are at this point still waiting for the owner permission form that the town provides to be filled out. We have the information that we have the numbered company, and the owner of the numbered company is the one that has signed the application. We're just going to confirm that with an owner permission form as well.
Okay, so when we go to DC, the direct control, is it the request coming in, they're not sure exactly how they want to develop this reserve, or will that be, where will that be identified? Or is it just the zoning, the DC, it just gives them more options? Why are we considering it?
They are asking that the designation go to direct control because of the type of proposal they're making. Typically on the highway, which this is on Highway 16A, so it'd be our highway commercial, there's no new residential development or continued residential development. So because the uniqueness of the lot, the size of the lot and the shape, and the use that they would like, which is going to have some retail farther away from the current residential structure, they would use the residential structure as part of staffing, because we do have that challenge in our community now. So that doesn't fit within the bylaw in any of the districts or zones unless you get the downtown with its retail and living on top. This building is existing and well-maintained from what I've been told and in good shape, so it'd be a shame to have to take it down. So if we go direct control, then council can still guide the development in a satisfactory manner, allowing this type of development to move forward in the zone it's in.
Okay, Councilor Barry.
Your worship. The one question I have is changing to direct control still respects the aspect that a portion of this parcel is in floodplain. So it doesn't change the requirements of what can and cannot be built in a floodplain?
That is correct.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, we'll see this at Monday's meeting for the first reading.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Next up, just ask.
Thank you, Your Worship. So here I have a memorandum to council and a bylaw. Just to note, this is called the Unoccupied and Derelict Property Bylaw. The background is the attached Unoccupied and Derelict Property Bylaw outlines the requirements for a property to be deemed unoccupied or derelict. Note that this was provided to the town last week by our assessor. This bylaw has been adapted with the format that was provided to us just to present to council today's for discussion. So this is very much starting basis point. We have been talking about vacant lands and not holding their amount up when it comes to like the taxes that they pay. So this is one other option that we can look at as a municipality for billing unoccupied and derelict property. Key things to note with this bylaw, it encourages the development of or revitalization of unoccupied and derelict residential and non-residential properties for the general benefit of the municipality. It allows for taxation of unoccupied and derelict property. This one that was presented to me was at a rate of 4 times the mill rate. Others that I've done some research since I put this together on Friday. Others have used 1.25. It's really up to council the direction that you'd want to go. As I had noted, the bylaw, I adapted it from the one that was presented to me, so it has it at 4 times the rate. And then this bylaw will result in a lower overall mill rate for the remainder of the properties that are not considered unoccupied or derelict. So it's the same way as the small business subclass. You create the mill rates based on your assessment base. So this chunk of our assessment is at 1.25 times or 4 times. So then the remainder, this is the mill rate for it. So you actually have to do a calculation to calculate the mill rate. So it would account for the unoccupied and derelict properties would account for more of the taxation base than they have in the past, which would then give a break to the occupied and non-derelict properties. Additional research that I've done also has noted other exemptions for R1 or R2 properties that are included in this bylaw. So there's one that I looked into. It said R1 or R2 zone properties where the property owner holds a title adjacent to the improved property, where the vacant lot in question has been integrated into the yard space to be enjoyed by the primarily improved property. In some of the cases that I've looked at other options, these are exempt. So it's saying that you may have a lot, or even a commercial one where you have a lot next door that is used for a parking lot. That is part of the main parcel. So those ones could be exempt from this bylaw because they are actually using the land. It's just they haven't actually amalgamated. So that could help with people not having to amalgamate properties. So typically these properties are landscaped, treed, and fenced and are congruous with the adjacent lots. So there's many different things that we can go and look into before this bylaw is passed, but I wanted to present it to council today as to see if it's something that you are interested in looking at. So as of right now, there's no financial implications of it. It could be passed in for 2025, and so at that point in time, we would bring that into our budget talks. But other than that, this is options for council are to review the bylaw and provide recommendations, or to review the bylaw and provide recommendation to bring it for reading.
Okay, who has questions? I know everybody's kind of, go ahead, start with Councilor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, so what I was reading here, when you look at the definitions, unoccupied property and derelict property, in each case, the definitions indicate that it has to have a dwelling on it that hasn't been occupied for a period of time. So this would not apply to a vacant lot.
That is what's not clear. This was the bylaw that was provided, but it was also including vacant lands. So that would be one definition that I would,
Okay, but in this current draft,
they use this to tax vacant land at 4 times the rate as well.
it's not defined in this.
I agree with
So,
that.
I mean, at the moment, this doesn't apply to a vacant lot. It wouldn't also apply to a developer that has several lots that he's getting ready to develop.
No, and they actually did this based on vacant land. So using this bylaw, the municipality that this was adapted from, they did it for unoccupied property that was had a building or a dwelling on it, as well as vacant property that had no building or dwelling.
Well, I wouldn't be able to proceed with this until I can see definitions that describe that a vacant lot would be included, because at the moment, it clearly says it has to have a dwelling on it.
Absolutely.
And it has to have utilities, and it means that it has to be, could be occupied at any time, if it's an unoccupied.
Yeah, they spent more time.
No, you can't do that on a vacant lot.
I agree. So that could be changed if this was the will of council to proceed with that. The bylaw that is presented was adapted 100% from this municipality, and they did use it to do unoccupied and vacant lands.
So we would be looking at this as doing the first reading and then completely revamping the bylaw before it came to a second reading.
I would, if there's changes, I would bring it to another legislative meeting.
Well, it would seem that we should just bring it to another legislative meeting before we do a first reading.
As long as it's the will of council to actually go through with this bylaw at this time, absolutely.
And I just want to interject something here. So Director Saskew has brought this forward to us about another municipality, and she's checked some other ones, and this is how they went around a derelict property. So if we just start with derelict property on their own, if you have the ability through a bylaw to 4 times their tax rate, their mill rate, the municipality now gets ownership a lot quicker through taxes on that derelict property. Speeds up the process. We talk about this when we look at brownfield lots, where they're paying nothing. They're not getting a utility bill. They're not contributing to the town. We need to know some more ins and outs of this. You just can't take one type in a zoning and just say, well, I'm only going to do that one. We need to get a lot more information as we're moving forward. But what we're doing is showing what the possibilities are here moving forward that we have through bylaw and with the legislation the MGA gives us today, that we have the ability to help the process of derelict properties, brownfield lots. How we choose to implement them is on our own. Then we'd have to write the bylaw around that. The bylaw that they used, where they said it was for derelict properties after 6 months and stuff, but they threw in empty lots in there too, but it really is not described very well within the bylaw. We would never do that.
I don't have a problem with taxing on derelict and unoccupied. I guess more of my concern would be the developer that has got several lots that the utilities are stubbed into, but he hasn't built on it yet. But would he have a special taxation while he's waiting to build and sell? And also, if he built, but it wasn't occupied for 6 months, does he go 4 times? So I'm saying that's not the area that we're trying to capture in extra taxing, but the derelict and unoccupied properties, I totally agree with. Now, infill lots that are vacant, are we wanting to tax that higher to try and encourage them to build? So they're not just using it as future investment. I guess that's the discussion that I'm at, is just which lots are we particularly trying to go after? A vacant lot that's great for infill, a developer that's having several lots but he hasn't got them developed and sold, or strictly an unoccupied or a derelict property. So those are the definitions and just what we're after. I do not disagree with having the bylaw whatsoever.
And the purpose that we have it in front of us here today is to start a discussion. We're not gonna take this to the meeting, have first reading, and then try to build some policy around it. What we're gonna do is we're gonna start the discussion about what we see would be the biggest advantage for the town of Vegreville. We look at the derelict properties in town, we look at brownfield lots, commercial lots that are setting, or do we take all commercial property that is boarded up? You know, do we say enough? We're gonna motivate you through this bylaw that you're gonna do something. Again, like, I don't think the intent, or it could be the intent of that bylaw was to go after residential lots that were empty. I think we're gonna try to address that through our utilities subcommittee about how we're gonna get vacant residential lots to start paying their fair share of flood mitigation, of infrastructure, and these things that are broke out in utility bill. We're gonna capture some of that within the new utilities bylaw. And that subcommittee is gonna bring recommendations. So we need to have a good discussion about the potential of building this bylaw and what it would mean to, first of all, help the process of these buildings that are, you know, they're just a nuisance in our community, and to force oil companies as well to do something with those properties, because they're going to be receiving a utility bill too. They need to contribute. Just because they took everything off their property, I mean, like 7-Eleven, the old 7-Eleven site is a good example here. We need to do something with them, because they're not going to be motivated to do anything, just sitting on it, paying the minimum tax. So Director Saskew and the CIO Ling have put this out there to get us in a conversation about what
I just want to expand on those definitions so that we are building in to go after that broader area.
And when we finalize what we're really trying to achieve, what properties in the zone, the zoning, or the commercial or residential, what we're trying to, then we'll write that in there. Go ahead, Councillor.
Yeah, similar to that question that Councillor Berry has put forward, and I appreciate your explanation, Your Worship. I think my concern here is that to equate these two is a mistake. Unoccupied is quite different than derelict. And who are we trying to compel, and what problem are we trying to solve? I would view sterilized brown lot locations that are dispersed throughout the community as very different from an unoccupied infill lot in a residential area. That is quite different than the perennial issues that we've had with residents complaining about derelict properties that are adjacent to their well-maintained residence. That also would be very different than compelling somebody that has multiple lots that they may not have paid a lot for at some time. I mean, I guess my concern is that we've put them all together, and maybe in a different municipality that might have been a different scenario. So I guess I would want to untangle what it is that we're looking for. If we're looking for infill development, that might be encompassed in one bylaw alongside compelling a derelict or delinquent landlord or homeowner or oil company that has not maintained or done anything with a sterilized brown lot, for example. I think those are not the same thing. And it is actually, I think maybe what we might be well advised to do is to start with one of these, not all of them, which is part of my concern too, is that if we try to do all of this at one time, that we're not going to necessarily hit the mark. So I would be interested in hearing from council and maybe from the public as well, what they view or what we view ultimately as governors, but to figure out what it is the problem that we're trying to solve. Are we trying to encourage development of residential properties? Are we trying to increase the aesthetic? Are we actually trying to unleash some of the sterilized highway frontage property that's basically been abandoned by oil companies that are not compelled to do anything. And I'm using oil companies for most of them because they're mostly gas stations that have been utilized at one time and no longer useful. And as long as they do their periodic checking of the site, they don't need to do anything else. So those are my concerns, is that I do think that there is some utility in the bylaw, and I appreciate that this may not be exactly the fit or what it's going to look like in the future. But I think we do need to be cautious that these are not the same thing.
And can I add to that a little bit? So the ones that I looked at that were more robust, like for example, the city of St. Albert's. So they actually have two standards on the vacant part of it. So I think they're looking for developers that have subdivided and just have basically left the subdivision for a number of years. So they use 7 years. So if it's been subdivided and less than 7 years have passed, you're not applicable to their tax rate. But if it's been subdivided and it's been sitting for 7 years, we are gonna now push you to develop those lands. So I think that's where this part of it for them came in. But there's also based on different zonings. So there's R1, R2, but then there's also like downtown residential where they have different zonings that are applicable to this bylaw or not. So that could be where we would have to bring in the vacant tax. So that's the MGA where it's like the vacant and the derelict. We would have to, for the brownfields, bring in some form of vacant land tax to be able to tax the brownfields, because as we know, there's no building on them. So that's where it's like the unoccupied or derelict property bylaw, that's where that came in. So then if those lots along 16A are zoned as downtown residential, that's where we could, but we can't just specifically pick the brownfield. It would be all lots that are in that zone that are vacant, as in no building there or unoccupied. Those would be
Subject to that.
subject to that tax.
So if we just start with the highway commercial along 16A. So, okay, we know there's a lot of brownfield lots in there. There's some other vacant property within that zoning. We couldn't take just the brownfield lots out. We would have to include all the other lots that are vacant in that zone. Again, this is for, I don't know how many of you knew that we had the ability to do this.
No, I don't have a problem with that. The problem that I'm having is I can see us giving direction of council to administration to develop a bylaw that will meet those things that we want. I'm not comfortable about giving a first reading to a bylaw that I know I won't pass as a second reading or third reading.
And again,
So I'd like to see the first reading be on something that I could pass.
yeah, so more than anything, this was presented this way to give us the knowledge that we didn't have. Like, I'm not expecting us to go ahead and have first reading next meeting. What we're gonna have is some more input, we're gonna get some more examples, and we're gonna have conversation like we're having today. And no different than the utilities bylaw. We had first reading on that because we knew the direction we wanted to take on that. And now we're gonna fill in the gaps on that, and there's gonna be recommendation coming back to council. And this, again, not too many people, even myself, knew that we had the ability to do this. So as we pick and choose, what Director Saskew is saying, you just don't get to single out certain types of empty lots in the zone that they're in the zoning that they're in. So we need to get some more information. We all want to motivate derelict homeowners to tear them down. We certainly do. And sometimes to wait 15 years and no taxes to get that house into our name so that we can tear it down or whatever the building is not reasonable. But if we could 4 times or 2 times, whatever we decide, to speed up the process, to get those derelict properties tore down and then the bill go against the tax roll, the better off we're gonna be.
I can just say that I think that it's achieved its purpose then, because we've already started a very good debate and discussion on it. And we can get it open and the public can understand just exactly some of the things we're facing. And yes, I really appreciate the aspect that if we get some bylaws in here that can start straightening out on the community, let's go for it. So guess I would say I'm in favor of one here where we're going to get more information.
And again, like what Councillor Rudick brought up again too, what does the public think moving forward? I mean, the fact that we've been waiting all these years to have something at our disposal, like a bylaw, the ability to force the owner's hand on derelict properties or brownfield lots, and just how far do we want to take it? So that's the discussion we need to have all the time. Councillor Curtis?
Thank you. Thanks for bringing this forward. I would probably like to see the other bylaws that you looked at, just so I could read them over. If you could add them into an email, so we get some more context. Thank you.
Go ahead.
So all I want to say is I got the point you're making, just see whether we even have any interest or there's no use at you putting any time into it. So I got that's the only point of this. But I'd just like to say thank you because this is putting another tool. I personally like the idea whether it becomes one well put together, well crafted bylaw, or maybe potentially, you know, separate bylaws for the different types of properties, everything from unoccupied to vacant, that's to be determined. But what I like about this opportunity is it is an opportunity for us to pull some properties out, set different mill rates, which we didn't always know was a possibility, and then not automatically have some of those implications impact the people who are doing their part and paying their taxes. And I like that the MGA is starting to allow us to look at what our community looks like and determine how we set up our tax structure a little bit, and I appreciate that you guys dug into that. I think this potentially could go forward after discussion, really solve some of our issues, and it may even be something that gets adapted even in vacant lots, maybe in its own bylaw, because it may need different parameters, but it may be a thing that helps us as well, because we at some point will be where we're trying to encourage people to do something over just holding them. So I think it's a good start and a good conversation now.
So the next step. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
I too agree with my colleagues as well. Like the derelict properties, I have no problem after going with something like that. The brown lots would be great. I do want to be careful about what we do with vacant lots, of course, because I don't want to discourage development either, because someone doesn't want to buy the lot now because they want to think that, oh, okay, we're going to 4 times the tax, and we know how rumors are. So, you know, there's that, and I'm a little bit worried about that. So definitely more discussion, more thought, for sure. Glad you brought it forward. I like the suggestion Councillor Curtis did, so we can see the other bylaws as well and stuff. But yeah, looking forward to more information.
And again, we have lots of different opportunities here. I mean, that one bylaw we looked at, they 4 times the mill rate. What they did in St. Albert, if that vacant residential lot, say you started this bylaw tomorrow, after 7 years, it would now not be exempt from a bylaw. So 7 years or something like that to motivate somebody to start developing a lot. Or they could just sell it to their wife and then they get another 7 years.
Actually,
Or
this one bylaw actually has notes of that where it says excluded. So then there's even an example where you subdivide and add an extra 5 feet and amalgamate 2 properties. They're saying that is not enough of a change. So there is actually, like this one in St. Albert, it has all of those little loopholes. They have it addressed. So if we want to go that in depth, but at the time, does council want to look at vacant lots? Does it want to look at derelict lots? Do we want to worry about 16A? There's so much detail that we could put into this that until I know which way council wants to move, it's a lot of extra work.
So is there anybody in favor right now as we start this process, and we're gonna have a lot more conversation with this, that wants to put an immediate escalator on the mill rate on empty residential lots? Okay, Councillor Rudick does.
No, I don't. And the reason I'm going to do that is because I was here on a council that had a land use bylaw that was not very contentious. I mean, it didn't seem to have very many elements that were going to be upsetting to the residents, and it was very upsetting to the residents. And in fact, some of the things that were most contentious, and I think Director Lefebvre will remember this well, some of the things that people were most upset about were the highway frontage, the commercial highway commercial lots that, for example, residential homes that are unoccupied for 6 months revert to being commercial, where there are many and please correct me if I'm wrong, which is entirely possible, that was the most contentious, although there were many elements that were upsetting to people. It was folks that had, those houses have literally been there for 100 years, and just because they weren't able to sell them, that they were getting penalized. And similarly, I see that lack of closing that gap in this as well, as it currently sits, because again, pulling ourselves back, what problem are we trying to solve? And even as you were just summarizing, Your Worship, that are we trying to incentivize more home building? Are we trying to increase a tax base in a new way? Are we trying to decrease taxes for folks? Are we trying to ensure that we have derelict properties taken care of? And maybe I'll just go to Director Lefebvre as a recap, because it was honestly like some of the pieces that were very upsetting to residents, not necessarily factual, but they were based in the idea that you cannot pick and choose. I mean, we just had an example with direct control. And if you use direct control too arbitrarily, you end up in a pickle where you get to do this and you get to do that. But the challenge here is if you make a rule for highway commercial, they all get treated the same and nobody gets to escape that. So.
Yes, and let's also remember the process, and that's what we're doing. Discussion with council, admin, then we go to first reading, and we discuss, because you're right, the previous land use bylaw was very contentious, but after the first read, it was some education, some good feedback from the public, and we elected to change, say, the residence that's been on the highway, once they're vacant for 6 months. We just added to it, it's still vacant for 6 months. However, if you've been actively trying to rent it or occupy it, then it carries on. So we changed some things in there to make it a little more reasonable, and the committee at the time agreed to do that, and I thought it was a good move. But I'm just talking about not so much what had happened, but the process was what we took it, ate it up, put it out. The public had their opportunity. They came back, said, we don't like this, or we like a change in this, or what about this? We made the change, it went back, and it went through its public hearing, second and third reading, and was okay. So the process does work.
And that's exactly what we'll do. I mean, no matter what, we will build some bylaws that we think serve the purpose moving forward. Now, what the purpose is, this is what we need to identify. It's no different than where we're looking at that new utility bylaw. You know, like we're not saying just because those buildings aren't occupied, but when we debentured money and did these projects, we based the fee on every tax roll in this community pulling their weight. And if they're not pulling their weight, it's not fair to everybody else to pick up the slack. And again, we have the opportunity here to look at derelict properties, commercial properties that people have just walked away from. Again, I'll say brownfield lots. It's a big issue in all communities, and it may motivate them a bit. But what is our overall goal? And that's what we need to make clear first amongst ourselves as we start driving the details in this bylaw. Go ahead, Councillor Lemko.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. I'd like to thank administration for bringing this forward for us. And you can tell by the amount of appetite that is evident here that we need to pursue this more. And I look forward to getting into some good dialogue and bringing in a bylaw that'll meet the needs of our community for the future.
Okay. So we are going to go with option one. And I know we're going to have to set some time aside to have discussions on this before we go to the first reading. And one of those discussions will be, what is the purpose? What's the outcome? What are we looking for? And any other thing that you can find in different bylaws, I know you're busy, but you can bring it forward to us. And again, these will all hopefully be implemented by January 1, the new utilities bylaw and this type of bylaw. So we got a lot of work to do in the next little while, but I think it's worth taking the steps to make sure that every tax roll in this town is pulling their weight. And again, we have a debenture that we're going to be taking for that forced sewer main. And if we can't spread that evenly over every over 30 years to every tax roll, we're not treating everybody fairly in this community. Okay, thank you very much. CAO Ling has this one.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. Next up is a letter from the Northern Lights Library System. It's addressed to myself, and it says, "The Northern Lights Library System Board unanimously approved in principle the upcoming 2025 budget. The budget includes a 1.5% levy increase for municipalities and/or their library boards. Northern Lights Library System Agreement stipulates that we use the same population list to access the membership levy that the provincial government uses to calculate library operation grants. Therefore, your population for purposes of the 2025 library system levy is 5,708. Please send a copy of your council motion accepting or rejecting the presented Northern Lights Library System Board 2025 budget with its 1.5% levy increase." So the 2025 levies for Vegreville, because we have a library board, will be $5.47 per capita. So the total levy for the 2025 equals $31,222.76 from the town of Vegreville. And you may contact your Northern Lights Library Board member representative if you have any questions. So this will be coming down because they need a motion of council. This will be coming forth on Monday's meeting for an approval or a non-approval to go to the Northern Lights Library Board.
What was the increase last year, do you remember?
Increase last year was 1.5. I think, if I'm remembering correctly, I think they did 1.5 increase annually for 3 years. Yeah.
Go ahead.
And Sandra, I do apologize. I was actually going to send to you. I didn't realize they were going to send it out this quick because they just did their meeting literally like a couple days ago. But I can tell you, having been new to the board and really looking at some of the costing, I mean, it comes down to a little bit of there may be people in agreement or not with being part of Northern Lights itself, which is one thing. But when it comes to the increase, you know, they have really cut a lot of corners to be able to keep it at the 1.5. I can honestly say that from seeing what they've gone through and what their increased costs were that are costs outside of anything controllable. This wasn't increases because of frivolous items, or even like they've even taken some big steps that were like long-term reduction in salary costs and whatnot due to some of their decisions. So this again is part of what they had discussed before, but I can tell you just from being very new to it, there was a lot of discussion around steps being taken to keep it to only a 1.5.
And at the presentation that we had last year from the Northern Lights, they did say that they'd be looking at a 1.5 for 3 years. So committed to that. Any other comments on this letter? So everybody will be ready to vote on Monday on this? Okay. Next.
Okay, next up is the draft GOV 10XX video surveillance policy. This was brought forth last legislative meeting, and council wanted time to digest and review the draft policy, and so it's back for discussion this week.
Okay. Who wants to start? Any more discussion, or are you guys good with it? Go ahead, Councillor Bullock.
Actually, I went through it and it's lengthy, obviously, and that's, too bad you just can't put a camera up, really. just to prevent vandalism that we're experiencing, so I don't have a problem with it.
Councillor Berry.
I just didn't want to go first. Thank you. Yeah, I went through it too, and I think it's a policy that we definitely need. We need to start having some better surveillance around more of our facilities, and I think it relates to some extent to the vandalism that seems to keep coming up. And I know it was said by His Worship last meeting, I believe, but I think the public needs to start looking at vandalism because it's costing their tax book. So I believe that we need to move to surveillance.
Councillor Curtis?
Thank you. Yeah, if anything, you know, we're not all impressed with how the law works with repeat offenders and getting out. However, if this is a deterrent that stops some of these crimes from happening and some of the vandalism, then that's also great too. So it's well needed and the bylaw's well put together.
Well, I think that within the policies built into this, that we've taken every step that we could to protect people's privacy and still use the cameras to be an advantage for the community. I mean, I know with the FOIP and everything that's involved in privacy issues and stuff moving forward, I think there's just no other way that, like Councillor Bullock said, it was a lengthy, a big read, but I think that we've taken every precaution to protect people's privacy and still have achieved some of the outcomes we're trying to get. So, Councillor Barry?
I just have one more thought on that, Your Worship, and that's from the other aspect of it actually provides a safety component to the public as well. Because, I mean, if our parks and some of our open spaces are being surveilled and some of our facilities have video, it actually can be a safety aspect to the citizens. Because if something does occur, we can look back on that and try and figure out what occurred. But it also could be a deterrent if people realize that the area is under surveillance. So I think it is also a safety aspect to the citizens.
Well, we always have to protect the privacy rights of criminals. During a criminal act, we got to think about that. So go ahead, Councillor Rudick.
I believe the question that I asked last time is about the insurance implications, about length of storage of this information and or potential. One of the thing is making sure that it says in here that the manager, the director is responsible for advising their staff. I think it would be important for the staff to understand the implications of the storage. I mean, it's very extensive in terms of why you would put up a camera, why you would be collecting the data, but on the converse, making sure that we have a plan in place for length of storage, what it is that we're storing, who we're disseminating that information to, et cetera. Do we have an idea about the insurance implications or liability?
That I don't have right off. I can touch base with our insurance provider and see if they have any specific guidelines. Otherwise, we would have to be following, I believe it's FOIP that we have to follow in regards to the rules of retention and dissemination of that info.
And a lot of that is either currently in our bylaw or will be put in our retention and records bylaw, because that's the document that we will follow.
Go right ahead, sir.
So I guess, I think we all get nerved up when it comes to FOIP because it becomes this thing that everyone thinks they're held within. And it is in many ways, but it isn't in other ways as well. I mean, the point to that is usage of very dedicated, what are we collecting information for the use of? So first of all, it was very clear in there and has been clear in what you can tape, that if it's in an area where you could reasonably expect to be taped, which is, of course, open public spaces, that people can expect that when we follow the guidelines and regulations. And it's what we're doing with it. Catching somebody's information and seeing it and then using it for contacting them for other purposes, that's certainly a FOIP violation. But very clearly, you being able to utilize it for the deterrent or to report issues, that's another side of it too. So, there would be a difference between saying Joe Smith is caught on tape doing something in the town of Vegreville posting posters in co-op saying Joe Smith was here doing this, and us utilizing it specifically with our bylaw and our RCMP. So, while I know the FOIP is there, it is also isn't something that can stop us or should stop us in any way from protecting our residents against vandals. And it's about time. I like seeing this, and I'm getting sick of everyday residents paying for a couple of jokers, and I'm more than willing to take it to the wall with the FOIP where it works, to be able to hold them accountable.
I know other municipalities, maybe not so much here in Alberta, but in the States and maybe in Ontario, where an employee has gone through some footage at a park, maybe a couple is doing something they're not supposed to do, and that employee has shared that information. Were they breaking the law? Probably what they were doing. But how do we control who has access, and do we have a policy if something was caught on one of our cameras that maybe a couple wouldn't want anybody else to see? Can our employees just take that
No.
and share that?
No, it'll follow along, and forgive me, I read this policy a little while ago, so it's not fresh in my mind. But it's gonna follow our retention policies that go along with, just as our body worn cameras with the municipal enforcement. Only certain people have access to it. It is accessed if there is a need to access the data. Nobody is sitting there watching at all times. If there's an issue that's reported, then we'll go back to the recordings to see what has taken place, and from the manager or the specific person who is to be viewing that video determines that there's something there that we can pass off to the RCMP in the case of vandalism for to create a police report, then that's what will be done. Otherwise, that information just sits there, and if it's not needed, it sits there until we are allowed to get rid of it and either record it over or just destroyed.
So most of it lasts about a month and it automatically deletes it because it needs a space to continue operating.
So let's say Parks and Rec staff would never have access to any of that footage. Yeah,
It is there, it's always on.
yeah.
They don't access it unless we do have an incident, and they usually come through me first.
And that's what I've heard in these other cases too. But then idle hands, they're watching the video from the night before, captured this, put it out on social media,
You
and
put limitations and settings in there that doesn't let them record or view it. It's only current what's on the screen.
but we would tell the employees that this is not within their job description.
Yes, currently none of them do it.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. So we'll see this at Monday's meeting as well. Okay, you still have one more.
Yes, Your Worship. The next item is the Council Remuneration Committee meeting. The Council Remuneration Committee meets, has previously met the year following an election, and that was the case in 2022. The committee met. They recommended some changes to council remuneration, which council adopted. And one of the recommendation was that they have a 2-year review to see how this was going. So what you have in front of you are basically the minutes from the meeting, the notes from the meeting, and I will go through them here with you. And the policies, if council, I'll get the recommendation from council, and if you are in agreement or would like something changed, then I'll do that and we'll bring forward the policies for adoption at another meeting. So the Council Remuneration Committee met. There's 3 public members, 2 elected officials, and myself that were sitting in the room, and they discussed the 3 policies: the Council Remuneration Policy, the Council Professional Development Policy, and the Travel and Expense Policies. So the first policy that was discussed was the council remuneration. And then after reviewing the comparison spreadsheet using neighboring and similar communities, the public members of the committee asked if council was okay with the new remuneration structure that had been put in place in 2022. The council members on the committee replied that council is fine with the current structure and pay. So the remuneration committee agreed to continue with the current structure and pay. The next policy that was up for discussion was the council professional development. And the committee was informed that at the previous meeting, the recommendation from the committee was to decrease the annual professional development allotment from $3,000 to $1,000, and that the elected officials could allocate their funds to another elected official if needed. When this recommendation was brought forward to council in draft policy form, council discussed the change and approved an annual professional development allotment of $2,000 instead of $3,000. The Remuneration Committee is recommending staying with the annual professional development allotment of $2,000 per elected official, with the expectation that the elected officials are to partake in professional development opportunities annually. The next policy is the travel and expense policy, and the Remuneration Committee discussed travel reimbursements, meals, parking, and accommodations. The Remuneration Committee is recommending changes to the travel reimbursement only, using the CRA mileage instead of the Government of Alberta travel, meals, and hospitality and expense policy for mileage. So they are recommending that it goes to the CRA mileage, which is currently set at 70 cents a kilometer versus the Government of Alberta rate, which is set at 55 cents a kilometer. Other considerations, with the changes made to the 2022, with the changes made in 2022 to the pay structure of council, it was missed that there are 2 bylaws that pay public members remuneration for sitting on those boards. The 2 boards are the Assessment Review Board and the Subdivision and Development Appeal Board. Both of these boards have mandatory training requirements to participate, and the training is put on by the Land and Property Tribunal Department of the Government of Alberta. Due to these training requirements and the needs to recertify every 3 years, the public members are compensated for their time. Bylaw 09-2018 Assessment Review Boards and 01-2019 Subdivision and Development Appeal Boards both state that the public members will be compensated as per the council remuneration policy. So with the current council remuneration having an annual remuneration, the committee recommends that the public members of both ARBs and SDABs are paid $200 a day for their time. Any travel, meals, and/or accommodation expenses are to be paid as per the travel and expense policy. And then the committee set the next meeting date to be Q3 of 2026, which follows the next election.
How many times do you think you said remuneration?
Enough that I had to stop saying it because I was getting tongue-tied.
Excellent. So I'll receive and file that at the council meeting?
We don't necessarily need to receive and file this, but ideally I would like council to discuss the options that were brought forth, and that way when we bring the policies forward, there'll be minimal conversation.
Okay, so the only thing that has changed is the mileage calculation.
That's the only thing that actually has a monetary value to it, is the mileage. Everything else is just kind of an extension of the current policies.
Go ahead.
I, just being in it and having not been on this before, I can speak to the mileage a little bit. Councillor Curtis and I didn't really partake in this, sort of left it with the group, but the reason the recommendation came as it did from them was kind of 2-part. They looked at other comparable communities, and the majority of them were on that CRA mileage versus provincial. And then the other thing, because my mind would have automatically gone to, well, you just follow the provincial, but in looking at the provincial as well, it hadn't gone up for a number of years, but it also had multiple other items that were charged in there. So for most of theirs, they would charge the mileage plus several other items, where when we added those up, it actually was the CRA rate. So that's, I think, why the committee sort of leaned that way. Maybe Councillor Curtis has anything else on that, but.
Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty much what came out of their discussion on it. with, I think all but one other municipality was on that same rate. Yeah, that was their discussion on that. Everything else stayed the same, and except for the paying the public members for those other two boards, which was the discussion that, it's hard enough to get people to do things and come take a day off or train, and they should be paid accordingly for their work.
For sure. And since the changes have been made at the last recommendation, I think everything has gone pretty smoothly, so. Go ahead.
Yeah, in that vein, actually, I do have a question, because I've sat on that remuneration committee a number of times over the course of my time on council. I'm curious, from an administrative point of view, and maybe comparative to what was previously in place, is this easier, and has there been an increase in pay for most councillors?
The new structure is actually a lot easier on administration. It's easier for payroll, it's easier for it's less paperwork all the way around. It's hard to say, because being paid per meetings, in the prior structure, being paid for meetings, it's a little hard to determine because we're coming off of COVID, but, and remote meetings are now very acceptable, very much the norm in some cases. So there's a lot of meetings where prior councillors or mayor would have traveled, been out of town, but now they're taking it remotely. So basically it's a wash when it comes to the annual remuneration for councillors. We compared it to what we paid prior, pre-COVID, and again, depending on the committees and boards you sit on, we had a range of $10,000 at the end of the year between the lowest paid councillor and the highest paid councillor, and it all works out to around what they're paid now. So it's not the big raise that everybody thought, but it's very on par with what everybody had been getting paid prior, and it's very on par with what neighboring communities and similar sized communities are paying too.
You know, I found it actually very interesting because I wasn't involved before. And I know Min said, like, for us, it didn't change a lot. But it was interesting when we looked at the other communities. In some cases, the base was lower or higher, obviously. But then when we started taking some of our meetings that we've had in the last little while and we added them in to what they had, we actually found that a lot of the communities would have been a lot higher than what we've been. So I think one bonus that I'm seeing now is, in the past, I think it encourages us to take more information meetings than what we would have taken before, because we would have not allowed 7 people to, say, attend an online course, say like something that maybe we've received through Alberta Munis or through, Alberta Council or whatnot. And now, because we don't charge for that, it's not hitting the taxpayers, so we encourage people to do those meetings a little more. So they did discuss that. The only other thing I thought I would bring forward was with the professional development. It was interesting. Again, we sat back and just sort of listened to the committee. They were actually extremely encouraging of professional development, though, but would really push to see people using it more and taking more in. And they were giving examples just even within their own careers of their required professional development. So that was an interesting point. They said they thought it was valuable to see it there, but would also like to know that we're using it.
Okay. So we had enough discussion on that?
Yep.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, I don't mind sharing personal side of it. I've been following mine. I sat on the remuneration committee a couple of times, and I followed my own annual, and it has made very little change by coming to it. other than it's a lot easier to report. And, you know, I mean, like, from the aspect of it to stay steady, I'm agreeing with, the aspect is we no longer have to debate about a public hearing because we don't get paid anymore for it. If you call us in for an emergency meeting or a special meeting, it's no extra cost, so you can call those to solve a problem in between. So I mean, like, in the aspect, I think it just made business easier all the way. And it certainly didn't increase what we get in an annual basis versus individual meetings to, you know, a set salary or payment. You know, so I think that the aspect is, and on professional development, I tend to agree. I think that certainly when you first come on to council, it really isn't what you think it is. And there's an awful lot of stuff that you might have thought you were pretty wise, but boy, you got to go and take a few courses and get up to date and realize what, I won't say being a politician is, but what is required of a counselor. And on the other side of it, when you start sitting on a lot of other committees, you start realizing that you really didn't know anything about the library or about the hospital or about something else when you actually ran for council. So I think personal development is important.
All right, thank you. We'll look to bring the policies forward around the beginning of October for adoption. All right, thank you.
Okay, next up is mine. Dear Vegreville Town Council, Mayor Tim, my name is Morgana Larson, and I am the FNMI, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit Leader Teacher at A.L. Horton. We have an FNMI-based ed kit coming in November called the Giant Floor Mat, which teaches about historical and contemporary FNMI issues. We are planning to host our FNMI families, ALH families we are planning to host the families, A.L. Horton families in general, and the Vegreville and area communities to an evening Wednesday, November 20th, using the floor map as the key part of the event, 5 to 7. We, A.L. Horton, Vegreville Comp, and Mundare Schools are planning to have a smudge, complete dinner, and FNMI-based food, floor mat teachings, timelines, pre and post colonialism, 12 core FNMI language boundaries, etc. We will have our Elk Island Public School FNMI consultant join us to help cook and do smudge and then implementing techniques regarding the floor map. We will also have Indigenous artists, elders, knowledge keepers join us, teach birch bark painting, where attendees can participate in making their own paintings. The event teachings directly coincide with our Elk Island Public School goals of supporting FNMI students engaging in and in teaching truth and reconciliation and communicating and providing engagement both in and out of our direct school community and with our community at large. From the town, we are looking for collaboration, participation that evening from counselors and potentially town employees, promotion of the event within your realm of social media, etc., and any financial assistance for the cost of the elder supplies and or food. And then they list the price of the food of $500, supplies of $550, and the elder's fee at $500. Please let us know to what extent you would like to participate, and we honestly are really looking forward to collaborating on this event. Okay. First of all, who is available on November the 20th? It seems a ways away. first of all, who would be interested? And you would, or you have a comment? And between 5 and 7 p.m., you should be off work by then.
There's food there, your worship. I can put my name down.
Traditional food too.
Oh, for sure.
So you would like to go? You would be interested? Anybody else? Yeah. Okay. So, any financial assistance for this? And anybody consider that, or? Okay, well, we can, we'll go, Councillor Curtis?
I think we can definitely help them out on social media and promote it.
Oh, we certainly can, yeah.
So I know that's something we can do.
Okay. There we have it. We'll help promote the event on social media. So we'll get back there to them, Leslie, and let them know who would like to attend, and they said staff too, if you're interested. You're going? Nice. It's really good. Okay, next up is mine. It's from the Ukrainian Canadian Congress. I better blow that one up. Dear Vegreville and Area Stands with Ukraine Committee. Why is it written to them? Oh, okay. Well, I can read it, but well, you're reading a letter that is not addressed to us.
It was sent to the town, as we are a liaison with the committee.
Okay. Okay, congratulations. We are pleased to inform you that your organization has been selected as recipient of the 2024 Hitman Award for Ukrainian Crisis Humanitarian Aid. This prestigious award will be presented at the 25th Annual UCC APC Hitman Awards Luncheon on Sunday, November 10th, 2024 at the Ukrainian Youth Utility Complex in Edmonton, Alberta. We encourage your family and friends to join you for this celebration. And reserve a table. The lunch reception will begin at 2 p.m., followed by the award presentation. We kindly ask you that you be seated at your table by 2:15. Okay. So it's just an invitation, and what can you tell us about this this award?
Thank you, Your Worship. The organization is the Ukrainian Canadian Congress, the Alberta Provincial Council, I want to thank administration for submitting the application on behalf of the Vegreville Area Stands with Ukraine. The Hitman Awards are dedicated to celebrating outstanding achievements of Ukrainian Albertans. And they're about showing that their time, effort, and expertise in order to keep our Ukrainian Canadian community in Alberta strong, vibrant, and active. This award's been available since 1998. The Ukrainian Canadian Congress has put this award forward. So I'll be presenting this tonight to the Vegreville Area Stands with Ukraine as we have a meeting tonight, and achievements of this committee through administration here for submitting nominations on their behalf. Goes to show the testament of the work these folks do. So thank you for that, and congratulations to the Vegreville Area Stands with Ukraine for another prestigious award for the work they do.
Nice. Good job. So, obviously, you will be attending.
We'll talk about it tonight. I believe the committee may be in attendance, as I might be in Orlando on that day.
Well, just let them know tonight at your meeting, Councillor Lemko, that we're all very proud of the work that they've done and how they've really helped out the bad situation and made a good situation in our community by doing so.
Yes, they've done remarkable work, and they continue to forge ahead with supporting the Ukrainians that are here in some capacity. So, yeah, kudos to them. I would encourage them all to go and stand proudly in the face of the cameras and receive the award that they so much deserve. Yep.
Okay. So next up, round table. We'll start with Councillor Barry.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have to admit that I haven't really heard anything that's going on around town except for the beautiful Alberta weather where you can have one weekend where it's 30 above and then the following weekend where you're drowning in rain. It's only in Alberta. And it has made it very fun at the corn maze.
I would imagine.
So hopefully this coming weekend, maybe we'll have a perfect average. But otherwise, I haven't really heard much of anything around town.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councillor Bullock.
Thank you, Your Worship. Actually, pretty late for me. Aside, I was at the FCSS meeting yesterday, and the FRN network with their new website. It was very interesting, and I just encourage every family out there to have a look at it. And that's really all I have. It was pretty uneventful. Harvest is on. People are on the move. It was raining. Farmers are in town spending money, so we should all be happy.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Warwick.
Well, I had two, but one is actually sort of been brought to us by administration as future budgetary discussion, which was potential of some additional hours at our Vic Center. That was one. Then the other one that came up, and I did say I was going to direct it, didn't have an opportunity, but I will ask Director Lefebvre, was do we have any type of fall pickup planned? It was just brought to my attention that fall is a time where people will sometimes do an extended fall cleaning of their houses, and they were wondering if there's any plans for some, the additional item kind of pickup. They said a lot of people do the hard spring clean and the hard fall clean, so that was just asked of me, so I just said I would check.
And the answer is no, that's not part of our fall program. We do a spring household hazardous waste roundup, and this year we did a spring cleanup as well, front street pickup that was put on by the ARMA. So, but not a fall one. No, we don't.
So just drop it at your place. Got it. Thank you, Del.
Councillor Rudy.
I wanted to say thank you to the Ag Society and Councillor Barry and all the volunteers for how great the corn maze looks. It is the tallest corn ever, and I realize that's outside of your control, but it was too muddy to enter when I was there, but great to be seeing all kinds of folks showing up even on a rainy day or the day after a rainy day from all over the place, some local and some very far away. So good to see people coming to town. And then the other thing I had brought forward to me, it's interesting that we had Prairie Tales here. I had somebody bring forward the concern that they feel like the volunteers and the organizers of Prairie Tales are getting really overworked by the demands that the public is placing on them. So again, I just want to make sure that volunteers feel appreciated by the town proper, by all of us here, and a reminder to folks to be very appreciative of volunteers, because it's a tough time to be a volunteer in any capacity, never mind one where people have such an emotional reaction to animals, positive or negative. So it's been on my radar for a bit, just making sure that people are remembering the proper way to be treating each other, never mind volunteers that are doing a really valuable service.
Thank you. Councillor Curtis.
Thank you very much. Not much for me either. I had the same comment as Councillor Warawa about the hours at the Vic, which is good. It means it's drawing people in. They want the ice cream. I don't know what you put in it, Jameson, but they want the ice cream. So that's secret. That's good. And I did hear some great comments about the corn maze, even though, yeah, a little bit of rain and this and that. But yeah, that's all for me this week.
Councillor Lemko.
Thanks, Your Worship. I don't have much. I just have one item I'd like to share with the those people listening, it would be a new initiative that's out in town. It's called Vegreville Men's Shed. This is a group of gentlemen in the community who are gathering together and doing woodworking and that kind of stuff and socializing. So it's open to anybody, men who may be isolated, may need to, or new to the community, need to gather and share stories and share friendships and make friendships and just be part of something that is designed for the greater good of the community. So if you're one of those individuals, reach out. You can reach out to me and I can put you in contact with the committee and go out and share some time with like-minded people.
Okay, thank you very much. I just want to thank the admin for putting the Vegreville Area Stands to the Ukraine, that committee's name forward for that award and the other awards. I mean, without it, I know people don't do the things that they've done in that committee for recognition or praise or a pat on the back. They do it because they want to make things better, but it's nice that when they are recognized. So thank you, whoever did that. Really appreciate it. Next up, we got Director Lefebvre going first, sorry.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just have a few director's highlights. Some of the projects done locally are 41st Ave, which I had mentioned earlier at our budget meeting. We did a chip and seal. It's a new product we're trying. We did lay it down and then put a sand over it until it starts to cure. We give it a sweep a few days later, and then we were receiving some complaints about it being dusty after dried up after the rain. And then we'll monitor it and maybe give it another sweep again just to see. I drove it late this morning, and it seemed pretty fine to me. So it's a new product we want to try. This went on to Cold Mix Road. We'll try that and see, and maybe it's an option for us to use after it does a winter of graders and snow removal. See if we can put it someplace else. So I'm happy with Dan Quigg, our Public Works Manager, for reaching out and finding different products and different things. Some technologies that are coming out are really good and some maybe not so good, but you have to research them all and try the ones you believe are going to work. We did finish the sewer line lining on 47th Ave in the north side of Horizon Village, as well as shortly after the road was based, televised, sewer line lined, paved, and then they were out of there. So it was a very busy road for about a week there. So they were in and out, and now we won't have to go back for many years. 51st Ave, from my last report, we got busy and got the road patched and repaired. This is in front of Altawide Timber Mart, Twin Lakes area. However, over 2.5 inches of rain put a stop on it. We were intending to start tomorrow. Again, it was still the ditch lines and stuff were too wet, so we're just gonna have to wait. Otherwise, just make a mess. So as soon as it dries, we'll be back in because we were very, very close to being finished. All of the low-pressure sewer systems are in. They're all professionally wired and done. The asphalt patching is done. We've set some grades. We're pretty happy with what the outcome is going to be. And I just got a few little bits to clean up, which is obviously some dirt works, which we can't do because it's wet. The on-site for Prosperity Industrial Park is our shallows. ATCO Electric is lead on the design and management of the shallows, and shallows mean the TELUS, the gas, the electrical supply, street lighting, etc. for the park. The engineer that we're working with has just completed it and shipped it off to the lead engineer with ATCO, and then from there it'll go back to TELUS and to ATCO Gas for approval, which there shouldn't be any problems because they've already reviewed it. And then it will go off and the design will be approved. We're reminded that will probably take another week or two, as it's a very complicated and extensive design, so they'll just need that extra week and a half is what we're getting back from ATCO Electric. So we're very hopeful that, this was sent on Monday, so we're hopeful that by next Monday we've got the design approved and we can move forward with what we need to do. So that was an update for you on that.
When do they expect to be on site?
They're still talking about this fall, and they're still starting about construction before the year end. I would only assume that maybe October would be early, the earliest, because it's going to be another week, 10 days to get approval on the design.
Okay, so CAO Ling, I think that we had better write a very nice email. We have spent all the goodwill we can with this project. So we'll work on that tomorrow. We have a purchase that can't go through because of this. We have a lot of stuff going on, and this needs to get finished, and I cannot believe that a company like that can hold up this long and just hold us ransom for no apparent reason other than a forest fire. I don't think those engineers were actually in there fighting those forest fires. It could be just speculating.
But it's just to remind council that what we need is the approved design by all the parties, and once we have that, then we move forward with our subdivision. We don't wait till utilities are hard in the ground. So as soon as we have that, our survey team is ready to roll, because we contacted them not long ago. So once they go in, we can subdivide, we can put the monuments or pins in, get everything set with the design, because if everybody approves the design, that's where things are gonna go. So they won't, once I get the approved design, they won't hold us up on this potential purchase any further. Then it'll be back to us to do it, and we're lined up for it, so.
We keep pushing back dates to actually take money on the sale because of this. Okay. What else you got, Director Lefebvre?
That's it for me.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Director Saskia.
Thank you, Your Worship. Finance has continued to spend time working on the 3-year operating and 5-year capital budget. Preparation was done for the manager budget presentations and rolling forward of the budget schedules. We've also been doing updates to Questica for new hires in the last 2-ish years, and changes to agree to current salary grids and staffing have also been started. So there's a little bit of catch up from last year, which is some of the changeover while I was away on leave. So nothing too pertinent, but definitely has to be updated in time for this budget. Our admin team is also still not fully staffed, with accounts payable and finance manager positions being open. The hiring process for accounts payable is underway. Interviews are to be scheduled and conducted in the coming week-ish, because with Alberta Munis next week, that puts a wrench in our plans for interviews then. The job posting was actually very successful. We had 55 applicants. Yeah, it's a very good time of the year for job postings. I know earlier in the season when we had job postings, even in Q1 and Q2, we didn't have a lot of applicants, and it looks like most of the jobs that we have posted right now have a good amount of applicants. Obviously 55 not quality applicants, but still a good chunk of good applicants for each of these positions we've posted recently. The finance manager position has been posted, and there's a closing date on it of September 26th. I actually haven't looked in the email to see what we've gotten so far, but just posted this last week. Other highlights of this current period, reviewing the application for accounts payables position and picking candidates for interviews, working on classifications of vacant lots in preparation for the utilities bylaws. So that's my homework for Councillor Lemko and Mayor McPhee. That is coming to you guys shortly. I have to just put in some actual addresses instead of roll numbers into my spreadsheets. Completion of budget summary for the manager presentations, adding new assets to insurance. We've purchased lots of assets over the summer that were budgeted. Updating our tangible capital assets for all of these new additions. Updating our financial statements, rolling them forward. We also had our initial asset retirement obligation study. That meeting was held on September 5th, so we have another follow-up meeting on, I believe it's the first week of October. So we were lucky enough or fortunate enough that our insurance had picked us for an in-depth valuation and study of all of our buildings. So he is more than thrilled to have received all of those, and they were done by Suncorp Valuations, and he said those are worth their weight in gold. So hopefully that means cost savings and an easy project for the town. They also noted that there'd be a liability for streetlights that we owned that weren't LED. And so very good, fortunate timing for us that we did the LED conversion. So we no longer have a liability for those. Also, I had a Questica budgeting touch base and training session. So our contact on that, she's really good. She reaches out once a year, and we have a free part of our fee includes a one-on-one touch base. So that was really good. And just other things of compilation of lease and purchase documents for several land matters for the town. So we've been busy and continue to kind of have many hats on right now. So, but it's been good.
Any questions? Farmland that the town owns. It's a 5-year lease period.
Yes, those are all those leases with the exception of the one that was Clara Narotz. Remember, she opted out of that lease early, so we posted that one. That is a 5-year lease, but all of our other land leases are at the end of their term this year. So they will be posted in spring for official tenders. And we had talked about, right now we put like Southeast 17, West of 4th, like we just put the legal land locations. And I think this year we'll actually make a map and we'll highlight the areas. And so then it'll be easier for people to put in their bids and know exactly, like, you know, for example, there's the hay at the airport. So myself and Director Lefebvre are going to work to get a little bit more comprehensive map. Maybe not putting that in the paper. We'll put just the actual land locations with a QR code to the link to the map on our webpage.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
CAO highlights.
Okay, well, this is going to be short and sweet because apparently I'm locked out of my computer. So I'm not sure what's going on. Since our last legislative meeting, a lot of what's going on is 2025 budget preparations. Sat in on the ARO meeting, currently still sitting on the regional recreation feasibility study meetings until the steering committee is up and running. We're starting our CPO interviews on Wednesday, so hopefully we'll get that taken care of fairly quickly. And other than the day-to-day stuff, that's about it.
Okay, any questions for CAO Link? Okay, is there any other business of council? Go ahead, Councillor Barry.
On upcoming events, the Riverbank project isn't listed there. Could you give me just a little more information on that? Because I didn't put it down as to location, time.
Yeah, and maybe Leslie can pull it up quick too. It'll be at the Vegreville Inn and Suites, the previous Pomeroy. It's a start of 9:30, so we'll be there a little before that. There will be a presentation, and then at approximately 11-ish, we will get on a bus from Vegreville Inn and Suites, and we will go to the location at the cemetery for a presentation. There will be some live video drone footage happening while we're doing this to help promote this. And then the bus will return us back to the Vegreville Inn and Suites, and we will have a catered lunch for those that are attending, and then more Q&A, and then we'll break away from there on our own.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So there was an RSVP on that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other business of council, we have 2 items in closed session. I would take a motion to go into closed session. Thank you, Councillor Warwa, at 5:33. Sorry about that. All those in favor? Carry. Thank you.